They said Alfred Charles had everything a man could ever want: a skyline office that kissed the clouds, a name that opened doors, and a fortune that could buy anything except peace. But on a grey December morning, as the city blurred behind rain-streaked glass, Alfred stared at his reflection and saw only emptiness. He hated Christmas. Not because of the carols, or the decorations, or the noise. He hated it because it reminded him of everything he'd lost, and everything money couldn't fix. Welcome back, my beautiful family. I want to say thank you for your love, your attention, and support for growing of our amazing community. We pray may God Almighty bless you and reward you all and your endeavors. Amen. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. Like and comment where you're watching from. Let's begin the amazing story of today. I believe we all are going to be blessed today after this wonderful story. Alfred sat in silence, his tailored suit as crisp as the winter air that pressed against the glass walls of his office. Outside, the city glowed faintly, half alive beneath a blanket of mist. His assistant's voice came through the intercom, calm and precise. "Sir, your lunch meeting with the Tokyo partners has been rescheduled. Also, the new house staff arrived this morning." He didn't look up. "House staff?" "Yes, sir. The agency sent a replacement for Mrs. Delaney. She retired last week." "Fine," he muttered. "Just make sure they understand the rules." Rules. No small talk.
No decorations.
No Christmas music in the house. He'd banned all of it years ago. That evening, the Charles estate stood cold and magnificent on the outskirts of the city, all glass and stone, a fortress against sentiment. The great fir trees outside were bare, their branches trembling in the wind. Inside, the smell of polished marble and silence filled the air. Yevida, his wife, walked down the grand staircase, wrapped in a velvet robe. Her beauty was still radiant, but her eyes carried the tired glaze of someone who had been living beside a ghost. "You're home early," she said softly. "Meeting's cancelled," Alfred replied, shrugging off his coat. Her eyes drifted toward the living room, where a single unopened box sat in the corner, her attempt to bring in some Christmas cheer. "I thought maybe we could." "No tree," Alfred interrupted. His tone was calm, but final. "Not this year." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She'd stopped arguing long ago. Later that night, while Alfred poured himself a drink in the study, a quiet knock came at the door. A young woman stepped in, her uniform crisp, her posture unsure but polite. "Sir, I'm the new maid. The agency sent me. My name's Lily." Alfred gave a curt nod, barely glancing at her. "House rules are simple," he said. "No noise, no visitors, no holidays. You'll receive your schedule from Mrs. Collins, the housekeeper. That'll be all." She hesitated. "Of course, sir. But, if I may ask, should I prepare anything special for the holidays?" He looked up then, his eyes sharp and cold. "I said, no holidays." Her gaze softened, though she didn't shrink back. "Understood." But there was something in her tone, not defiance, not pity, something else. Something that lingered long after she left the room. That night, sleep didn't come easily. The wind howled through the corridors like a ghost with unfinished business. Alfred poured another drink and stared at the photo on his desk, a boy with messy hair and a snowman, frozen in laughter beside a younger Alfred and Yevida. It was taken 10 years ago. The last Christmas they'd spent as a family. The year their son, Daniel, never came home. A car accident on Christmas Eve, the one memory Alfred could never escape. He'd buried his grief beneath work, buried love beneath silence, until there was nothing left to feel. He'd told himself that Christmas was cruel. That hope was a lie. But as the wind rattled the window, he thought of the maid's eyes, gentle, questioning, alive. And something, for the first time in years, began to stir. The next morning, Alfred descended the stairs to find the scent of coffee drifting through the hall. Lily stood by the window, holding a tray. Sunlight caught her hair, turning it into threads of gold. "Good morning, sir," she said, smiling. "Would you like some coffee?" "I make my own," he said flatly. Of course. But I noticed you like it strong, so I tried a darker roast. Just thought you might prefer it. He hesitated, then accepted the cup. The first sip startled him. It was exactly how he liked it. He didn't say thank you, but she noticed the flicker of surprise on his face. "You've been here 2 days and already think you know my preferences?" he asked. "No, sir," she replied. "I just pay attention." There was something in her voice, soft, steady confidence. Not servitude, not fear. Later that week, Yevida caught Alfred in the foyer. "I've been invited to the community Christmas gala. They're raising funds for the Children's Hospital, Daniel's ward." He stiffened. "You know how I feel about that time of year." "It's not about us anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "It's about helping others. You go if you want. I'll stay here." Her eyes dimmed. "That's what you always say." As she walked away, Lily, who had been arranging flowers nearby, glanced up quietly. She said nothing, but her expression spoke volumes. She could feel the coldness between them, the kind that no heater could melt. That evening, Alfred returned late. Rain lashed the windows as he loosened his tie, exhausted from a day of meetings and mergers. In the kitchen, he found Lily cleaning up. A faint melody hummed from her lips, soft and nostalgic. "Turn that off," he said automatically. She froze, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sir. It's just a habit." He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "What song was that?" "An old one," she said softly. "My mother used to sing it when we had nothing. She said music made the walls warmer." He studied her, this strange young woman who spoke of warmth like it was a gift she still believed in. "Did it?" She smiled faintly. "Always." For a moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, "You may continue." She looked at him, surprised, then resumed humming as she cleaned, her voice soft as snowfall. And for the first time in a decade, Alfred didn't feel completely alone in the house. A few days later, Yevida left for the charity gala, leaving the mansion unusually quiet. Alfred sat in his study, surrounded by reports and contracts, his armor against the world. But by noon, his stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten. He wandered into the kitchen, expecting emptiness. Instead, the smell of home-cooked food greeted him. Lily stood by the counter, plating a modest meal. "I wasn't sure if you'd want lunch, sir," she said, "but it felt wrong not to cook something warm on a cold day." He frowned. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," she replied, "but sometimes people need what they don't ask for." Something about her words disarmed him. He sat down. "What is it?" "Just soup," she said with a shrug. "My mother's recipe." He took a spoonful, then another. The taste was simple, honest. Something in him loosened. "You're not afraid of me," he said after a moment. She looked up, smiling. "Should I be?" He didn't answer. But in that silence, something shifted, the beginning of a story neither of them could have predicted. Outside, the snow began to fall. And though Alfred Charles didn't know it yet, this Christmas would be the one that changed everything. Soft instrumental swells, fading to silence. Sometimes, healing doesn't arrive with a grand gesture. Sometimes, it begins with a cup of coffee, a kind word, and the courage of someone who believes in warmth when the world has forgotten how to feel it. And for Alfred, that warmth had just walked into his house. The snow deepened over the next week, covering the city in a hush that made even time seem slower. Inside the Charles mansion, something subtle had changed, barely visible but real. Lily worked quietly, humming as she moved through the halls. She never pried into Alfred's business, never crossed the invisible line he'd drawn, but somehow, her presence filled the silence. She noticed things, the way he avoided certain rooms, the way his gaze lingered on the empty chair at the dining table, the way Yevida left early and came home later every night. And Alfred noticed her too, not out of curiosity, but out of something else he couldn't quite name. Her laughter, though rare, felt like sunlight breaking through thick clouds. One morning, while cleaning the storage room, Lily stumbled upon a dusty box marked Christmas. She opened it, revealing delicate glass ornaments, a tangle of lights, and a child's handwritten tag. To Dad, from Daniel. Don't break it. She smiled sadly. The ornament was a small glass snowman, cracked but still holding its shape. She held it carefully, wiping away the dust. She called softly, noticing Yevida standing by the doorway. Yevida's eyes widened when she saw it. Oh, I didn't know we still had that. It's beautiful, Lily said. It was Daniel's favorite, Yevida whispered, her voice trembling. He gave it to Alfred the year before. Her words trailed off. Lily gently placed the ornament back into the box. You should keep it safe, she said.
No, Jovita replied softly.
Keep it where he might see it. There was a long pause. Then Yevida added, almost in a whisper, maybe it's time. That evening, Alfred found the box on the dining table. His eyes froze on the cracked ornament. He felt anger flare, not at the object, but at the memory it carried. Who brought this out? He demanded. Lily, who had just entered with a tray, startled but stood her ground. I did, sir. I didn't mean to intrude. You had no right. His voice cut through the air like glass shattering. Lily lowered her gaze but didn't retreat. It wasn't meant to hurt you, she said quietly. It's just, it didn't deserve to stay hidden. You don't understand, he snapped. You don't know what that means to me. Maybe not, she said. But I know what it means to lose someone and still keep pretending you didn't. His breath caught. What do you know about loss? Enough, she whispered. I lost my brother last year. Same week as Christmas. I stopped singing, stopped cooking, stopped living. Until I realized, hiding everything that reminded me of him didn't make the pain smaller. It just made me smaller. The room fell silent. Alfred stared at her, this girl with her calm, steady eyes, and for the first time, he saw not a maid, but someone who had walked through her own fire. You may go, he said finally, voice low. She nodded and left the room, her footsteps soft on the marble floor. When she was gone, Alfred sat down, staring at the cracked ornament. For the first time in years, he didn't throw it away. 2 days before Christmas Eve, Yevida packed a small suitcase. There's a cabin retreat the hospital invited us to, she told Alfred, her tone polite but distant. I think I'll go. He didn't argue. He rarely did anymore. Of course, he said, not looking up from his papers. Alfred, she said quietly, you're not the man I married anymore. He froze, then forced a brittle smile. Maybe that's for the best. She turned away before he could see the tears forming in her eyes. Merry Christmas, Alfred, she said softly, and left. The door closed, leaving him alone once again. That evening, Lily found him in the living room, sitting in the dark. Only the faint glow of the city lights filled the room. She hesitated before stepping closer. Sir, she said gently, you haven't eaten. He didn't respond. After a pause, she said something unexpected. I know it's not my place, but tomorrow's Christmas Eve. Would you, maybe, like to come to my place for lunch? His head turned sharply. Excuse me. It's nothing fancy, she said quickly. Just a small lunch. My mother used to say no one should be alone on Christmas. He frowned, half in disbelief. You're inviting your employer, a man you barely know, to your home. Yes, she said simply. Because I think you're lonelier than you pretend to be. Her words hit him like a soft, painful truth. He wanted to refuse, to tell her it was inappropriate, absurd, but for reasons he didn't understand, he didn't. Why would you want me there? He asked. Because, she said with a smile, you look like someone who's forgotten what warmth feels like. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, we'll see. At night, Alfred couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, the snow falling in thick silence outside. He looked around the room, every inch of it a monument to his success and his solitude. On his desk, the cracked ornament still Saturday. Its fractured glass caught the dim light, scattering it into small, trembling reflections across the wall. He reached out and turned it over gently in his hand. And for the first time in 10 years, he whispered his son's name. Daniel. The word trembled, fragile and foreign on his lips. He closed his eyes, and the memory came back. A boy laughing, snowflakes in his hair, his small hand in Alfred's. Dad, don't work today. Let's make a snowman. He'd said no that day. A meeting had seemed more important. By the time he'd changed his mind, it was too late. Alfred felt tears sting his eyes. He hadn't cried since the funeral. Outside, the wind whispered against the glass, carrying with it the faintest sound, as if the world itself was exhaling. When dawn came, it brought an eerie stillness. The sky was pale silver, and the streets below lay buried in snow. Lily knocked gently on the study door. "Sir, I brought breakfast." He looked up, tired but calm. "I'm not hungry." "It's Christmas Eve," she said, placing the tray down anyway. "The world's allowed to rest, even CEOs." He almost smiled at that. Almost. As she turned to leave, he said quietly, "What time is lunch?" She blinked, surprised. 12. "But really, you don't have to." "I'll be there." She smiled then, not out of victory, but something gentler. "I'll send you the address." Alfred's driver was stunned when he gave the order. "We're going to a residential neighborhood, sir." "Yes," Alfred replied, adjusting his tie. The snow fell heavier as they drove, soft flakes melting on the windshield. The city's wealth faded into small houses, each one glowing with decorations and laughter. He watched through the window, families building snowmen, children chasing one another, a dog barking in excitement. It felt like another world, one he'd long abandoned. When the car stopped, he saw a small, weathered house, lights strung clumsily along the porch, smoke curling from the chimney. He hesitated before stepping out. The cold air bit at his skin, but somehow it felt alive. Lily opened the door before he could knock. "You came," she said, her face lighting up. "I said I would." "I wasn't sure you meant it." "Neither was I," he admitted quietly. Scene 9. Lunch at her place. The inside of Lily's home was nothing like his mansion. The walls were unevenly painted, the furniture mismatched, but everything radiated warmth. The scent of cinnamon and baked bread filled the air. "It's small," Lily said, embarrassed. "But it's home." "It's," he paused, searching for the word. "Comfortable." On the table sat a simple meal, roasted chicken, vegetables, and a pie that smelled like memory. "I haven't had a home-cooked meal in years," he said quietly. "Then you're overdue." They sat together. The clink of cutlery mingled with the crackle of the fireplace. For a while, neither spoke. Then Lily said softly, "Your wife, does she like Christmas?" He hesitated. "She used to. I think she still does. But I made her stop." "Why?" "Because I couldn't stand
Thank you
the
so
reminders.
much for everything you
Because I
have
thought
done
if I erased
so
the
far.
symbols, I could erase the pain.
Thank you
Lily
so
looked at
much
him
for
gently.
everything you have
You
done
can't erase
so
pain.
far.
You can only make space for it to heal. He met her eyes then, really met them, and something in his chest shifted. A crack, just like the ornaments, but not breaking, opening. After lunch, Lily went to the small upright piano in the corner. "My brother used to play this," she said. "I haven't touched it since he passed." Her fingers hovered over the keys, then pressed softly. The melody that filled the room was tender, fragile, the same tune she'd hummed in the mansion. Without realizing it, Alfred felt tears on his cheeks again. Lily noticed but said nothing. She just kept playing, letting the music do what words never could. When the song ended, he whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me I'm still human." She smiled, her eyes glistening. That's all any of us need to remember. As Alfred prepared to leave, Lily handed him a small box wrapped in paper that looked like it had been reused a dozen times. "What's this?" "A Christmas gift," she said. "You don't have to open it now." He took it carefully. "No one's given me a gift in years." "Then maybe it's time to start again." He looked at her, wanting to say something, but no words came. He simply nodded, turned toward the door, and stepped back into the falling snow. As the car drove away, he opened the box. Inside was a small wooden carving of a snowman, hand-painted, imperfect, and smiling. He laughed, a soft, broken sound, and for the first time in a decade, it didn't hurt. Sometimes it takes the gentlest soul to touch the deepest wound. And sometimes, the simplest gesture, a shared meal, a small gift, can bring back the color to a life gone gray. But Alfred's story was far from over. Because the next day, when Christmas morning dawned, something would happen that neither he nor Lily could have ever expected. The world outside was white and silent when Alfred woke up. For a moment, he didn't recognize the feeling that stirred inside him. Not joy, not quite peace, but something softer. Something close to hope. He rose, dressed simply for once, no tie, no perfection, and stood by the window watching the city glisten beneath the pale sun. Christmas morning. He thought of Lily's house, the warmth, the laughter, the scent of cinnamon and roasted bread. And the little wooden snowman she'd given him. It now sat on his desk, right beside Daniel's cracked ornament. Two imperfect things.
Thank you so
side
much
by
for
side.
everything you have
He
done
smiled
so
faintly.
far.
Then, unexpectedly, a
Thank
knock
you
at the
so
door.
much for
When he
everything you
opened
have
it,
done
Mrs.
so
Collins,
far.
the housekeeper, stood there, nervous and pale. "Sir, I think you should see this," she said, handing him a small envelope. It was addressed to Mr. Alfred Charles, written in a delicate, almost childlike hand. Inside was a note. "Dear Mr. Charles, thank you for coming yesterday. I didn't think you would, but you did, and that means more than you know. I'll be at the community center this morning, helping serve breakfast for the kids. It's something my brother and I used to do every year. If you'd like to join us, we could use an extra pair of hands, and maybe a smile. Lily." He read it twice. Then, without hesitation, he reached for his coat. The streets were still half asleep, the snow crunching under his polished shoes. When he arrived at the old community center, laughter and voices spilled out through the open doors. The air smelled of cocoa and pancakes. Inside, volunteers bustled about, hanging decorations, serving food, wrapping small gifts for children. And there, at the far table, he saw her. Lily, in a red scarf and flour-dusted apron, surrounded by kids who adored her. She laughed easily, her cheeks flushed, her eyes bright. She looked like Christmas itself, alive, unguarded, and kind. "You came," she said when she spotted him, surprise and delight in her voice. "You invited me," he said simply. "Still, I didn't think." "Neither did I. But it felt right." He rolled up his sleeves. "What do I do?" Her grin widened. "Serve. Smile. And don't break the cocoa mugs." For the next few hours, Alfred Charles, billionaire, CEO, once the coldest man in the city, served breakfast to laughing children. And with each plate he handed out, something heavy inside him began to thaw. Around midday, as the children played near the Christmas tree, a small boy approached him. He couldn't have been more than 8. "Mister," the boy said shyly, "you look sad, even when you smile." Alfred blinked, caught off guard. "Doi?" "Yeah. My mom says people who miss someone's smile like that." The boy handed him a paper snowflake he'd cut himself. "Here. You can have this. It makes things less sad." Alfred knelt, his throat tightening. "Thank you," he whispered. "What's your name?" "Danny," the boy said. The name hit him like a soft thunderclap. "Danny," Alfred repeated quietly, as if saying his own son's name for the first time in years. The boy grinned, waved, and ran back to the other children. And in that instant, Alfred understood. The world hadn't taken Daniel away entirely. Pieces of him still existed in moments, in laughter, in small miracles that showed up when one dared to open their heart again. When Alfred returned home that evening, Jevita's car was already in the driveway. He found her sitting in the living room, coat still on, a faint smile playing on her lips. "You're home," he said, surprised. "The retreat felt empty without you," she admitted. "So I came back." There was a pause, a decade of distance hanging between them. "How was your day?" she asked. He hesitated. Then, quietly, "Different. I helped serve breakfast at a children's center." Her eyes widened. "You?" "Yes. And it felt good, Jevita." For the first time in years, she saw something in his eyes that wasn't cold. It was remorse, tenderness, and maybe even redemption. "Do you remember Daniel's tree?" she asked softly. He nodded, his voice almost breaking. "How could I forget?" "Then let's bring it out tonight," she said. "Not to mourn. To remember." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes. Let's." That night, for the first time in 10 years, the Charles mansion glowed with the soft light of a Christmas tree. Lily helped them unpack the old ornaments, even the cracked snowman, which she hung delicately near the top. Jevita placed Daniel's photo beneath the tree, her hand trembling as she touched the frame. And Alfred, he stood beside them, silent, as if afraid to breathe too loud in the presence of Grace. The air was full of small sounds, laughter, whispers, the faint hum of Lily's melody again. When the lights flicked on, Alfred whispered, "Merry Christmas, Daniel." Jevita squeezed his hand. "He'd be proud of you," she said softly. He looked at her, tears catching the golden glow of the lights. "Maybe. But I think he'd be prouder of us." Scene 6. The Firelight Conversation. Later, as Jevita went upstairs to rest, Alfred found Lily by the fireplace, cleaning up stray ribbons and wrapping paper. "You did all this," he said quietly. "I just reminded you what was already here," she replied. He studied her for a moment. "You know, when I hired you, I thought you'd be a distraction. Instead, you brought this house back to life." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the flicker of firelight. "Sometimes all a home needs is a little warmth, sir." He chuckled. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Then she turned serious. "You forgave yourself today, didn't you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I think I did." "Good," she said softly. "That's the best gift you could give Daniel." He looked at her, moved beyond words. "Lily, But before he could finish, she reached into her pocket and handed him something, a folded piece of paper. "Read this later," she said. "When you're alone." Then she smiled, wished him good night, and disappeared down the hall. When the house grew quiet, Alfred unfolded the note. The handwriting was familiar, small, neat, full of care. "Mr. Charles, you once told me I didn't understand loss. But I do. My brother and I were in an accident last year. I survived, he didn't. For a long time, I wished it had been the other way around. Until I realized he'd never want me to stop living just because he couldn't. When I first came to work here, I saw that same grief in you, the kind that builds walls instead of bridges. But you taught me something too, that even the coldest hearts can thaw, if given a little faith. So thank you, for letting me be part of your story, even for a while. Merry Christmas, Alfred." Lily. He read the letter 3 times. And for the first time since Daniel's death, he didn't feel guilt pressing on his chest. He felt gratitude. The next morning, Alfred went to Lily's house, snow crunching under his shoes, breath misting in the crisp air. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again. An older woman opened the door. "Oh, you must be Mr. Charles," she said warmly. "Lily told me about you." "Is she home?" he asked. The woman's expression softened. "She left early this morning, said she wanted to visit her brother's grave before heading to the train station." "Train station?" "Yes. She's moving." Said she's ready to start over somewhere new. His chest tightened. Did she say where? Only that it's somewhere quiet, near the coast. He stood there for a moment, the winter wind brushing against his face. Then he smiled faintly. Thank you. On the way back, Alfred stopped at the community center again. The decorations were still up, though the hall was empty now. He walked to the piano in the corner, the one Lily had played. He sat down, pressed a key. The note rang out, soft and imperfect. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Lily." Then he played her melody, slowly, hesitantly, until it filled the room with warmth once more. A year passed. The Charles mansion looked different now. Laughter echoed through its halls again. Children's voices filled the air. Yevida had turned the once-empty ballroom into a charity foundation headquarters, the Daniel Hope Trust, helping families who'd lost loved ones. And Alfred. He still ran his company, but not from behind walls. He visited the community center every week. He volunteered. He lived. One afternoon, while sorting donations, he found a familiar tune playing on the radio.
A soft piano melody.
Lily's melody. He smiled, looking toward the window. Outside, the world shimmered in golden snow. He whispered quietly, "Merry Christmas, Lily, wherever you are." And for the first time in his life, the words felt whole. Narrator, soft, closing. Healing doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. The millionaire who once hated Christmas learned that love, in all its small, imperfect forms, never really leaves. It lingers in songs, in laughter, in kindness freely given. And sometimes, all it takes is one invitation to lunch. The first snow of December came quietly that year, drifting down like slow forgiven memories. The Charles mansion, once cold and silent, now glowed with warmth, a living house again. Children ran through the halls with laughter. Volunteers bustled in the foyer preparing boxes of food and gifts for the hospital fundraiser. And at the center of it all stood Alfred Charles, no longer the unreachable CEO, but a man changed by time and tenderness. He wore a simple gray sweater, sleeves rolled to his elbows as he tied ribbons around presents. Yevida came up behind him, smiling softly. "You've gotten good at this," she teased. "I've had practice," he replied, half laughing. Her eyes glowed. Daniel would have loved this. He nodded. "I think he already does." Then, as if remembering something, he said quietly, "It's been a year since Lily left. Have you heard from her?" Yevida asked. He shook his head. "Not a word. But somehow, I feel like she's all right." 3 days before Christmas, Alfred received a small, weather-worn parcel at the office. The handwriting on it was unfamiliar at first, until he saw the way the L curved in the signature.
L. Morgan.
He froze, breath catching. Then, carefully, he opened it. Inside was a seashell, a folded letter, and a small photograph. The photograph showed a tiny seaside cottage, painted pale blue, with the ocean glimmering just beyond it. He unfolded the letter. "Dear Mr. Charles, or, should I say, Alfred. It's been a while. I wasn't sure I should write, but the truth is, I think I owe you this. I live by the coast now, in a little town where the sea sounds like music and the sky changes colors with every hour. I help at a local school, teaching children who've lost their parents. They remind me of the kids from the community center, and of Daniel too. Some days, I still feel the weight of the past. But when I do, I walk to the shore, and I listen. I imagine my brother's laughter in the waves. And sometimes, I imagine yours too, the way it sounded that day you spilled cocoa all over yourself trying to help those kids. You taught me that grief doesn't mean life stops. It means life changes. It deepens. And because of that, I finally feel free. Thank you, Alfred, for letting me into your world, and for letting me leave it when it was time. You and Yevida gave me faith again. This shell was from the first beach I walked after I decided to start living again. It's a small thing, but I wanted you to have it, as proof that you helped someone find their way home. Merry Christmas. With love and gratitude. Lily. The paper trembled in his hands. He closed his eyes, and for a long moment, the office around him disappeared, replaced by the sound of crashing waves and Lily's laughter in his memory. 2 weeks later, Alfred stood at the edge of that same sea. He'd taken the trip quietly, no entourage, no driver, just himself and a road that stretched through miles of pine and silence until it ended where the ocean began. The wind whipped against his coat, cold and clean. He followed the path along the cliffs until he saw it, the small blue cottage from the photograph. He hesitated at the gate, unsure if he should knock. Then, a young girl, maybe 6 or 7, came running up the path. "Are you Mr. Alfred?" she asked, clutching a seashell. He blinked in surprise. "Yes. How did you?" "Miss Lily told us you might come one day. She said if a man with kind eyes and a heavy heart came by, I should give him this." She handed him a folded note. He knelt down to her level. "Where's Miss Lily now?" The girl pointed toward the horizon. "She's gone to the orphanage on the island. She goes every December to bring gifts. The ferry leaves at dawn."
Alfred smiled faintly.
"Thank you, little one." The girl grinned, then ran back toward the cottage, leaving him standing there with the note in his hand. He unfolded it. "If you're reading this, you found your way here. I don't know if I'll see you again, Alfred, but know this: the world needed you to stay, not disappear. You've built a new life from loss, and I couldn't be prouder to have witnessed it. Go live now, fully, freely. The sea will remember both of us." That evening, Alfred walked down to the shoreline. The sun was sinking, turning the waves gold and crimson. He removed his shoes, letting the cold water lap at his feet. In his hand, he held Daniel's ornament and Lily's seashell. 2 symbols, one of loss, one of renewal. He whispered softly, "Daniel, Lily, thank you." Then, gently, he set both into the tide, watching as they drifted away together, a cracked glass snowman and a pale seashell glinting under the dying light. The sea accepted them, carrying them into infinity. And as he watched, a sense of peace filled him, not the sharp ache of mourning, but the deep quiet of forgiveness. When Alfred returned to the mansion, Yevida was waiting by the fireplace. She looked up as he entered, snow dusting his coat. "You found her, didn't you?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "Not in person. But I found what I needed." He took her hands gently. "She's happy, Yevida. And because of her, I think, we finally can be too." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "Then maybe this year, we invite everyone, the kids, the volunteers, the whole community, to celebrate here." He smiled. "Yes. Let's fill this house to bursting." That night, the mansion came alive again. The ballroom glowed with lights, tables heavy with food, the air thick with laughter and warmth. Children from the foundation ran between the trees, their eyes bright with wonder. Volunteers danced.
Jovitasant.
And at the grand piano, Alfred sat playing Lily's melody, the same tune she'd once hummed in the kitchen. The music rose, wrapping around the room like a promise. Then, softly, he began to speak, not to the crowd, but to the memory of those who had changed him. "This song," he said, "was taught to me by someone who believed that warmth could live even in the coldest hearts. She reminded me that love doesn't end, it transforms. And I think that's what Christmas really is." The crowd fell silent, listening. He continued, his voice breaking but sure. "To anyone who's lost someone, to anyone who feels alone, remember this: you are still loved. Somewhere, somehow, love remembers you." And with that, he played the final note, soft, lingering, like snow melting into the earth. Scene 7. The letter on the piano. After the guests had gone and the lights dimmed, Alfred found one last surprise waiting for him on the piano bench, an envelope. Inside was a short note, written in the same familiar script.
Dear Alfred.
I couldn't stay away entirely. I watched from the doorway tonight, saw the lights, the laughter, the life you built back into this home. You did it. You made it warm again. I'll keep walking my path, teaching, singing, remembering. But every Christmas, when the wind carries music over the waves, I'll be listening for this melody. Keep playing it, not for me, but for everyone who's forgotten how to feel. With love, always. Lily. He smiled through tears. He didn't run to the door this time. He didn't need to. He simply sat there, looking up at the window where the snow drifted past, the stars glowing faintly above the city. And for the first time in his life, he felt completely, quietly, whole. Years later, people still spoke of Alfred Charles, not as the cold CEO, but as the man who changed his mansion into a haven every Christmas. Children who'd once gone hungry now found warmth there. Yevida ran the foundation with laughter in her eyes. And every December, without fail, the grand piano would play a certain melody that no one could quite name. Visitors said it sounded like ocean waves. Others said it sounded like a heartbeat. But Alfred knew the truth. It was the sound of a promise kept, a memory turned into music. He never saw Lily again. But every Christmas Eve, when the snow began to fall and the firelight flickered low, he'd look toward the window and whisper, "Lunch at your place changed everything." And if you listened closely enough, you might swear you could hear a woman's laughter in the wind, carried all the way from the sea. Some stories don't end with love found, they end with love remembered. Because real healing isn't about getting back what was lost, it's about learning to live with open hands, open hearts, and open doors. And sometimes, all it takes is one invitation to lunch. Thanks for taking your precious time watching. Please, before you leave, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you are watching from. Thanks.